So here's a random one for you. Is this a roundabout? An odd question, you might think, and one with a seemingly obvious answer. But it seems to spark constant debate amongst Aberdonians. It's a debate I've been familiar with for some time, but was observed quite astutely by a visiting Glaswegian a couple of years ago on this Reddit thread. One commenter remarks, "It's not even round." Another says that there are no signs identifying it as a roundabout. This person claims their driving instructor has explained that it is not a roundabout. But most Aberdonians, if asked, will describe it as the Mount Hooley roundabout. So, is it really one? Or is that description just a colloquialism? Mount Hooley is a vast development, totalling 2.5 acres in area. An urban garden lies in the middle which can be accessed from 2 pedestrian underpasses. One is beside the high-rise developments on Hutchins Street, and the other is at the old entrance to Causeway End Playground. It is a pleasant way to cross the junction, fairly secluded from the surrounding traffic, if somewhat plain and uninteresting. It is sometimes called the largest roundabout in Europe. Of course, that assumes that it is a roundabout. What we do know for certain is that today's junction replaced a roundabout built here in 1960. The roundabout was sorely needed to cope with the constantly increasing car usage of the 20th century, and, of course, keep an ever-increasing amount of people mobile in an ever-expanding city. Many old buildings were swept away in the process, something that would be a common sight in Aberdeen's city centre in the following decades, especially around the nearby Loch Street area. The original roundabout would eventually prove insufficient, and would be replaced as part of a larger set of schemes to improve the infrastructure of the city, and more buildings would be swept away. Just as work dualling Anderson Drive was starting to wrap up, Aberdeen planned to improve throughput in the city centre by constructing dual carriageways all the way from Stonehaven Road to the Inverurie Road, which was very ambitious and costly. All the more of a folly then, when the last stretch between Skene Square and Great Northern Road was never completed. At the time of writing, the Berry Den Improvement Project, which was first announced in 2017 to finally link up these carriageways and bring the full benefit of the Third Dawn Crossing project to fruition, has still to break ground. Construction began on the new Mount Hooley junction in 1970 and took 7 years to complete. But is it a roundabout? Let's start by addressing the signage observation. Approaching the Denburn roundabout, we see a typical triangular warning sign indicating that a roundabout is ahead. And the same if we approach on the dual carriageway from the other direction. But not so much if we approach from Woolman Hill or John Street. Indeed, there are also no signs of this kind for the Hilton roundabout. Oh well, what about the infamous Hadigan? I mean, surely we need a warning for that one. Nope. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to when these signs are deployed and when they are not. There are directional signs on all 4 approaches to Mount Hooley, however, and they look like the same signs we see on approach to other roundabouts. The purpose of the gap on these signs, just in case you were ever curious, is to reinforce that you must navigate roundabouts in a clockwise fashion. The argument that a roundabout should be round is, no. And I'm not going to respond to any individual driving instructor's opinion here. The biggest argument against Mount Hooley being considered as a roundabout is the layout, which does not conform to any conventional description of a roundabout that I can find. When making certain approaches, you can't navigate it in the same way as you normally would a roundabout. For example, if one were to go from Gallowgate to Causeway End, you'd be using the second exit, or straight on. If it were a roundabout, you'd normally use the left-hand lane, as illustrated in the Highway Code. Mount Hooley's left-hand lane disappears, however, at this part of the junction. It never makes a complete loop. I really employed my best Google foo on this one, and sadly came up with no concrete answer. I guess we'll never really know what Mount Hooley really is. Hold the phone though! Because I have an official response here on the subject, not only from Police Scotland, who actually enforce the traffic laws, but also from Aberdeen City Council themselves. And the official answer is... it is a roundabout! It's a roundabout! We can all sleep peacefully now, knowing that Aberdeen City Council and Police Scotland consider Mountuley to be a roundabout. I mean, that's what the guys in the FOI offices are saying anyway. I'm not going to preclude the possibility of a hardcore road expert appearing in this video's comments section and schooling us otherwise, though. Both authorities in their response appear to agree that the answer is not obvious, with Mountuley bearing characteristics of a large urban gyratory. But they both also agree that it would still be considered a roundabout. Although, frankly, I'm a little bit irked that the City Council officer cribbed from the Police Scotland response, almost word for word. And I'm not sure if I'd gamble my licence on the liberal interpretation of the Highway Code either. But, for now, this answer is as good as we're going to get. I hope you found this video informative. If nothing else, at least you now have some closure to a totally inconsequential argument. Welcome to the post-credits section. My metrics show that a lot of my viewers actually miss these, so if you're here, congratulations! You have found a secret, apparently. Now, you'll remember I ended my last video by mixing a very silly drink. I had intended to follow up on this theme with a video entitled Aberdeen's Most Bizarre Cocktail. However, after briefly researching the health impacts of snorting and inhaling alcohol vapours, I decided I just don't want to touch that. So you got this video instead. I'll be uploading a much less silly video next week, one I actually did like real historical research and stuff for, so stay tuned for that. You know, that last drink was horrible. I think I've earned myself a palate cleanser.